Since I'm feeling frisky, why do I have my hood on? Keeps my ears warm, I guess. Do I really want warm ears, though? No, I don't think so. I think what I'm going to do... There we go. Now I feel more like a normal human being. Okay, so... As I always ask, these videos always start with, where are we at? Where are we at? And you cannot know. You're not allowed to know where you're at until you run Blender. Which, by the way, I just did, and for some stupid reason it didn't start. What's up with that? There it goes. Okay, so I've surreptitiously carried out some activities about which you, the viewer, are unaware. Did this shot, this shot, this shot. So this shot was done offline. So I like the way it feels. Mexican standoff kind of thing. Then hands her the garment. She wraps up. They face each other. Da-dum, ba-dum. That's just so cheeseball. I love it. Okay, so anyway, the next shot, Zen sort of makes it clear that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with by going. I don't know if the sound effect would be exactly. But here in opentoonz, what I had to do is, wait a second, set the stop marker, set the start marker. Okay, so that's a little fast, isn't it? Let's go to like 4 frames a second, which would assume that that our keys are on 6s, right? Okay, so what I'm thinking here is a little of this sort of motion. So I was inclined to use the plastic tool, but I don't know. I think not. I'm just going to duplicate the image. So in opentoonz, that's the D key. And fortunately, I've made my hotkeys in Krita and opentoonz like almost exactly the same. So that means here in opentoonz, I can go like this and just select his arm and then put the pivot point right there so that I can go and then all I have to do is patch it up. No big deal. Okay, now this one's a little more of a big deal because Akari is in the same drawing with him, so that makes it slightly obnoxious. But what we'll do, gotta remember my hotkeys because they're not all the same. Okay, so now G key to sample, V key to paint, and I'm only painting areas, not lines, so this way I can patch it up without, you know, inadvertently erasing things I didn't actually want to erase. So that's pretty good. Now I'm going to hit my eraser. Hello. Alt key on the eraser lets you resize it. And just go like that. And then I need to come over here. I'll hit the B key, I guess, first. And then I'm thinking Krita here. I'm hitting Control to sample. I actually need to hit the G key. And that doesn't sample the color. That samples the palette. So in other words, by sampling this color here, it's going to automatically go to the correct color in the palette. Quite handy for jumping around and selecting the colors you did in fact intend to select. Now the problem this does give us here little bit is that we really need to move the shadows too. So I could just redraw them, but you know what? In the interest of being clever, I'm going to just do it that way, which presents a bit of an issue here because that has to be painted back in. And so that's that. I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow indication here because if he was actually lifting his deltoids up like that, they would actually flex a little bit. So yeah, flexing deltoids. One never knows when one's going to need to flex one's deltoids. Am I right? Am I right? Okay, so let's go back one drawing and sort of add a little bit of fun detail just because it's, well, fun. I just said that. Okay, so now let's hit the L key. Okay. So now, okay, so actually, 4 frames per second means it's on 6s. So, but this felt a little short. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, put this on 2s as well. And then this shot needs to be locked for probably, 1 second. 1 second might be too long. So let's put the stop marker there. Let's set this back to 24 frames a second so we can kind of sort of see what we've got. And then what I think I'm going to wind up doing, okay, opentoonz is now being stupid and having to take forever to save the file, which means it's time for a drink of our coffee. That's what morning coffee is for. It's for keeping us from wanting to claw our eyeballs out when our software is taking a long time to do things that should take, quite literally, 1 microsecond. Okay, so now let's hit the old go button. Okay, I like the concept, but what we want to do here is I'm going to actually give this 1 second. So I'm going to stretch this all the way down to 24. Okay, and this might seem a little confusing, but actually this needs to go even further. This will make sense in a minute. What I wanted to do was, I know that that initial flex was about 8 frames, so I'm going to hit the, okay, I can't make a duplicate, so let's go 117, 117, that's 116, 117. Okay. Okay, so now this is arguably a bit too long. So that's what I wanted to do. I basically want to have him sort of have a shake at the beginning of the motion. So I'll just stretch this down to here. K key to rewind. Let's see what that feels like. Okay, not bad, except I really want the same thing here as well, which suggests that this probably wants to be about a ½ second longer than it currently is. So I'm just going to stretch the endpoint to there. We'll pull these guys all down to here. Save early, save often. So now what we want to do is we want to make kind of a trembling motion here as well. So let's duplicate that shot and just see if we can do it the quick and easy way, which is the same way I did it before. So I'm just going to take this and pull that in a little bit. Okay? And whatever is not quite right about it, we will fix here in a moment. Okay? So now here, just to cheat, what I want to do is I'm going to try to leave the outline of his shoulder intact. So obviously we're going to have to patch up the hands here, but that's no big deal. No big deal. Okay, so I want to take that and just push it in a little bit. Okay, so that does give us a bit of work to do, no doubt about it. So let's sample this and let's just start patching. And I think we can be reasonably confident that the actual animated effect will probably be pretty cool. Because we're just going to toggle on twos between these two shots, and we're going to do it like several times. Okay, so here, since we're only filling areas, we can just sort of paint liberally and know that we're not going to inadvertently erase our outlines. So again, problem here is that we need to make a commensurate adjustment to the shadow layer. So we'll anchor that in the deltoid, pop that over there, B key. Okay, stop. How did I get? Oh. Well, I am a silly goose. All right. Okay, so I actually changed the wrong one. So it's my bad. I'm going to hit the D key here. And I need to come back here and put this back. The problem was that I had never hit the D key, so I was actually inadvertently adjusting the previous keyframe. It happens. Okay, so with that, let's take the B key and let's give this boy some shadows. Am I right? Am I right? Okay. Okay. Now I got to jump back over here and use my eraser judiciously, and then sample V key just to get a little flesh tone in there. Nah, that's no good. Gotta wrap back over that. Okay. Sample. Got a little flaw here on Akari that's going to have to be fixed right there. No big deal. Actually, there's one too. Oh, okay. I guess that's a pervasive error. Okay, so now what we should be able to do is take these two keys and repeat them. So, how do we do that? Well, W key, no. Actually, I'm going to hit the Q key. Whoops. And is that sufficient? No, I need one more. There we go. Okay, so I think that'll do the trick. Let's see. Let's put our background back on too, just to see what we've really got pretty much. All right, so L key. Well, it's usually a good sign. If it makes me chuckle, it's usually like, okay, that's cool. I like it. Alright, so that's it. Let's render that sucker, cut it into the show, and then it's on to the next shot. Render. And what's our number? I believe it's 140. Yeah. 0140.mp4. Render away. Render away, little opentoonz. But don't tempt me. Okay, that's a quote from Dr. Shrinker. Remember that show? Dr. Shrinker, Dr. Shrinker, he's a madman with an evil mind. Okay, if you didn't grow up in the 1970s, you wouldn't know that song. Dr. Shrinker, his assistant was Billy Barty, who, you know, in the annals of television, there's maybe like 3 guys that are like really well-known dwarfs, and Billy Barty was one of them. So Dr. Shrinker's little assistant was Billy Barty, and Dr. Shrinker would say, Billy Barty would always, what would actually happen is Dr. Shrinker would always, and you can find Dr. Shrinker on YouTube. You can find full episodes, so now you can check it out yourself. But what happens is Dr. Shrinker, whose voice is like this, always comes up with a plan, and his plan always leads to trouble for himself, which he doesn't anticipate. And then what Billy Barty always does is some little thing behind the scenes that actually protects Dr. Shrinker from himself. And Dr. Shrinker never realizes that Billy Barty actually solved the problem, never gives him the credit, and he's always threatening him and saying, "Don't tempt me, Hugo." So, all kinds of fun. Actually, the truth is, it's a very, very, very cheeseball show. For the time, it's not that bad, though, because they do actually a remarkably good job of convincingly here in the 1970s, the special effects of like normal sized people that have been miniaturized. That's, you know, Dr. Shrinker, he shrinks people. And they do actually a shockingly good job considering this is like 1977 or something. And it was all done on videotape. So anyway, that was all just to kill time while I jump over to my renders here. And there it is, ready to go. Let's look at Blender. So I'm going to move this up to here. And this should be pretty exciting. We're going to cut this into the show, and I expect it's going to feel pretty good. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to mouse this over Blender so that we get the access to the window. And then one thing you always want to do with Blender is immediately save it and reload it, because otherwise you get some weird hiccuping going on in the video sometimes. So let's see how it plays, and if it plays well. Golly, 16 minutes to do this shot? Geez, yesterday's shot was only 20. That's incredible. Okay. Now here he goes, hands him the shirt. He says, "Don't tempt me, Mr. Zen." Oh, I'll tempt you, all right. Mm-hmm. Nice. And the fight will ensue. And I can't tell you what's going to happen in the fight. But once we get the fight done, look at where we're at here. We are only 7 seconds away from 7 minutes, which means Act 1. So this is great. This means that very soon, we just have to get through this stuff. Tightening it up, making it look good, blah, 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 blah. And I'll say that most of this, we're going to be able to probably pull out of opentoonz, I think. I mean, obviously the anatomy here is a little questionable. I might want to redraw that, but once this happens, Act 1 is complete. And what happens then? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what happens next in the story. But we're gonna have to put some sound effects on it, some score. I don't know. We're gonna figure out some voices. Who knows what will come next? It's a big mystery. So Valerie's over there chuckling, which says to me that she knows what comes next. It's like, I'm ignorant. Okay, she just told me I know what comes next too. So I don't know what comes next. I kind of sort of know what comes next in the story. But I'm talking not just in terms of the story, but in terms of the total workflow and the publication of the show. Look, if we're going to release this thing on YouTube, I'm inclined to think it's not a terrible tragedy to maybe release it 1 act at a time, so that each episode has three sections. I don't know, it's just something I'm thinking about. So anyway, I'm going to stop here, and we're pushing 20 minutes, and then I will probably just continue with the next scene. Maybe yet today. So, anyway, that's it. There will be more later.